In Lesson 5.1, Example 4, we're going to be using the idea that you've already learned where if you have any radicand, remember that's the piece under the root bracket there, any radicand to a power, and you're taking an nth root of it, our index is n, it can be rewritten as your radicand to the m power over the nth root. You use your index at the bottom here. So to simplify these expressions, we have essentially 32 m to the 15th. That is our radicand. When we're working with that, we want to say, well, we could separate them if we'd like to. So I'm going to separate it as the 5th root of 32 times the 5th root of m to the 15th. By separating them, I can find a number possibly that will give me the 5th root of 32. And we've talked about this in previous examples. That means taking something times itself 5 times to make 32. Well, maybe you remember from previous examples that 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. That means our answer to the 5th root of 32 is 2. Now, when it comes to the 5th root of m to the 15th, it might be helpful to think of it as m to the 15 over 5. The power is your numerator, and the root is your denominator. We can reduce 15 over 5 to m to the 3rd. Therefore, our final answer for example 4, part A, is 2m to the 3rd. Looking at B, I'll do the same thing, except for I don't have any coefficients in this radicand this time. So I'm going to take x to the power of 20 over the index of 4, which is the 4th root, times I've got y to the 8th power over the 4th root. Both of these divide very nicely where we're going to have y to the 2nd power and x to the 5th power. So at this time, having done example 4, hopefully you've copied it and followed along in your packet. You've realized that we need to separate each variable or number under the radicand and do them separately. When it comes to your quiz question, on Canvas, it asks to watch the video and answer the question. Your question is the following. Out of the 2 answers we just found for your example 4, part A and B, which power was not one of the answers? That is, which number that they gave you as the choices of 2, 3, 4, or 5 is not an exponent to one of these answers? Take a second to answer that question. Now, if we look real quickly for an extra practice here on the try-its, I'll walk through a couple of these with you here. There's one really important thing to note on part B. There's a little typo here. There should not be a negative sign. So since there's a typo error, let's do that one. I want the 4th root of 256 times, I have x as a variable in my radicand, so I'm going to write x to the 12th, the power's on top, over the index, or the 4th root, times y to the 24th over 4. Now these are nice and reducible, so I will have y to the 6th here. I will have x to the 3rd. And coming to think about the 4th root of 256, it just so turns out that if you take 4 times itself 4 times, you get 256. So our answer would be 4. Here would be our final answer for the try-it. You could go ahead and try this next example or the try-it part A, keeping in mind that when you take the 3rd root of -8, you're looking for something times itself that makes -8. And this time it's our first vision of a negative. So -2 would be your first answer. And I'll go ahead, you can write it out a little bit differently, but your final answer should just be an A and a B to the 3rd. Make sure you can think about why those powers are the ones that they are.